We have just received words that Apple's Steve Jobs is at that press conference that is going on right now in Cupertino, California. We're going to get to Chris Valerio in just a second, but I want to get back to Ken Schapiro. Ken, we're finding out that Steve Jobs is there. What's the significance of that?
I think that is very significant. He views this as an issue. He wants to get in front of the public. He wants to give his story about it. I think he's a dynamic person, so I think that's definitely a positive.
And Chris Valerio in Cupertino. Chris, is that surprising news, or was Mr. Jobs' appearance expected today?
I think to a certain point it was expected. I mean, we had asked the PR people, they weren't going to confirm it for us, but Steve Jobs likes to shows up, especially when it's something that's attacking directly his company and his products. He is very, very big on projecting the image that Apple is. You know how important he is to Apple. So certainly out there. One thing I wanted to mention, by the way, one of the headlines coming across, the song that opened the event up, the Antenna song. So certainly a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and Apple making fun of itself, so to speak.
And Chris, before you continue, I just want to mention that we are receiving headlines on the Bloomberg terminal from Mr. Jobs and some of his comments. He's saying that we are not perfect. He says we want to make all of our users happy, and that Apple has sold more than 3 million iPhone 4 models. So Mr. Jobs touting the positives for Apple.
One of the reports I read this morning, and this really highlights it really well, it said, despite the most successful product launch in the history of mankind, I mean, that's what this was. It was an extremely successful product launch, and people are still buying it. I actually have a question for Ken as we get these headlines coming across. Ken,
sure.
How much of this issue do you think, from an image standpoint, is going to have people hold off and wait for that Verizon iPhone if it does indeed come out?
I don't think that they are. No one really knows when it's going to come out. There are rumors that, maybe it's year-end. Then there was another report recently in a class action suit that the original contract was a 5-year contract, and we're looking at 2012. So I don't really think that this is, one versus the other.
All right, Ken Schapiro and Chris Valerio joining us from outside Apple's headquarters in Cupertino.